Good morning, everyone. It's Jamie from Independent Street Tarot and Seasons from Ritual, and I want to jump on real fast. It is January 31st. Tomorrow will be what we celebrate in bulk, and that is the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So we were halfway between winter. Um, so if you guys are having a tough winter, just know we're halfway through it. This is when the light starts to come back more and people start to get excited. And usually the lambs start to have their babies. And so people can start seeing signs of spring. So happy Imbolc to all those who celebrate. I have my headphones in because they are supposed to be power washing the outside of my house. And living in New Orleans, they're pretty gappy. So if I get hit in the back of the head with water, we'll either just power through it or in the video. So let's find out. So the reason I coming on to make this video is to talk a little bit about the planets and what's happening politically in America and the best way to combat that. I went to a meeting last night and my friend was like, "So is everything okay?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And then she's like, "No, no, Jamie, like astrologically, the world, is everything okay?" And I started laughing and I was like, "Yeah, actually it is." And so astrologically, the way that I read the planets, to me, everything is okay. So that being said, um, looking on the world stage, things don't look okay, correct? And so I wanted to speak a little bit about the best way we can, I think, this is my opinion, help combat what's going on. So what we need to know about our president here in America is that he is a Gemini. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is communication. And what was interesting is when I looked this up, he's a Gemini, which is mutable air. And then Kamala is a Libra, who is cardinal air. So I thought that was really interesting. They had two air signs running against each other in this age of Aquarius. So, but the way that we combat, and if you're a Gemini and if you get stuck sometimes spinning, going back and forth, this is for you as well. But the way that you combat that is to get a strategy. You have to have a plan. Now, the best way to combat a narcissist is not to be involved with one. But unfortunately, we don't have that choice right now. Right now. The reality of it is there are laws in place. We could deem a president unfit. We do have these laws. And I do want to say this too. We all have a local government. If you're worried about something, go to your local government and make sure you are heard. Um, Go to the state capitol, call your representative that's in your state. It doesn't always have to be at that federal level. The thing that surprised me the most about the um, the funding freeze and that he was going to take SNAP benefits away and Section 8 and all this stuff is that I live in Louisiana right now. I'm originally from Alabama. Mississippi's next door. We're poor. We are poor. We are poor states. We're very rural. I think Louisiana, as far as I know, like New Orleans is their number one moneymaker. Maybe Baton Rouge is the second. Okay, there's not a lot of just like industry and stuff here that brings money to the state. So these states are literally federally funded. So the fact that um, there was going to be a mandate to go out, I don't understand how that was going to work. I don't understand how the state legislators here are going to be okay with any of that. Now, it has been rescinded at the same time, and this is where I get a little bit sarcastic from being around a while, if you will. But a lot of the senators in these states do backroom deals, and they own a lot of Section 8 housing. So I don't understand how they would agree not to get paid. Okay, that seems very odd that they would just shoot themselves in the foot and be like, cool, yep, I don't need this money from my tenants. So that's the other thing, okay, we need to remember is that there is so much that's intertwined. Some of them is kind of shitty, like these backroom deals. But some of them, you know, just normal federal funding that, schools, churches, get, right? They apply for grants. If you're a church, you usually apply for a grant, any church. It doesn't matter what church. Um, Mega churches, they run a lot of things off federal grants. Right now, we're getting ready for the Super Bowl. We're painting all these super beautiful murals all around the city. People, everyone loves these murals. Those were most likely from federal grants. Okay. So, on one hand, it would be great if people maybe got a little more invested or understand what federal grants go to fund, besides just listening to the rhetoric of one side or the other. And also, it's really important for us to remember we are the richest country in the world. We do have more than enough money to feed people. We do have more than enough money to clothe people. We do have more than enough money to house people. And if you're like, how can that be? That's not true. The answer is a man lives here who's worth $400 billion in America. Another man lives here who's worth over 300 billion and 200 billion. Okay. If you can live in America and amass that kind of wealth, that tells you how wealthy we are. And I know you're like, that's really, but really, really, there are plenty of CEOs and people that make millions of dollars a month, millions, not like $1 million a month, which would be bananas, but like $34 million a month. Okay. And the powers that be right now feel like we shouldn't tax them because that might, I don't know why. I don't know, because that might hurt their feelings. I don't know. So I don't want to get too much into that, but we do need to start questioning these things. Like it's okay to feed people. It's okay to give them clothes. We have more than enough here in America. We really do. Um, we are a nation of consumers, okay? And we've been consuming a lot and a lot more apparently since the old TikTok boom, right? People have been saying use this product and people have been like, oh, great, and buying it. So the first thing, let's go back to the whole Gemini strategy. What's important to know about Gemini right now is Jupiter is in Gemini, which is I find very, very interesting. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius, right? And Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. And Jupiter is the planet of gifts, luck, faith, right? Because Jupiter expands. Jupiter, and that's why I always tell my sweet Sagittarians, don't overcommit, don't overcommit. The thing is that you guys are fun, you get things done, and you like being around people, but sometimes you overcommit, and then the next thing you know, your schedule's all full, and then you hate humanity. So don't overcommit if you are Sagittarius. But what's important to know right now with Jupiter in Gemini and with the president being a Gemini, he's really, I mean, he's a narcissist and he's low on those lower Gemini vibes. And one thing I forgot, but now I remember, one thing that narcissists do, and it's part of I don't know if they do it on purpose, if it's just gaslighting, it's just what they do. But they always do the exact opposite what they complain about. And so if you've ever been in a narcissistic relationship, whether it's with like a parent or a coworker or, a brother or a sister, a lot of us have been in narcissistic relationships just because there is usually that conversation you have with them when they're complaining about something or saying they won't do that when that's exactly what they're doing and you're trying to point out that that's exactly what they're doing and they're just like no I'm not, okay, and then you're just gaslit from here to high heaven and you're like how am I living on an alternate universe, right? I forgot about that until this morning when I was thinking about Pete Hegseth. And so just remember that that's part of the gaslighting playbook, right? To say, in this case, about quote unquote DEI hires and only the best and the brightest, that I was quoting Pete Hegseth, and the most competent and well qualified should get hired. And then they hired him to be the Secretary of Defense. And I was thinking yesterday as well that most of the people that ran the Secretary of Defense usually had general before their name. And this guy, if you just go by his resume, he was in the military for a while, and then he managed two nonprofits, and then he became a TV show host for Fox and Friends. So just on paper, this man is not qualified to do what he does. And we don't even call him, I mean, he's not a general, he's not a colonel, he's not a lieutenant. He's literally Pete Hegseth. So before, when we talk about the Secretary of Defense, he would have some sort of rank, that's the word, before his name. And this guy is just fucking Pete. Okay. So you have this person who is unqualified, literally on paper, for this position, talking about how we need to have qualified people. Okay. And then I was like, oh, yeah, the narcissist playbook. So again, remember this, get a strategy, whether you don't listen to these people, you understand this is part of what narcissism does, and you don't need to figure it out. You don't need to waste your time trying to make it make sense. Okay. That's one part of the strategy, because it's never, ever going to make sense. You need to find your people who make sense, understand, who live in reality, um, who have maybe the same beliefs, but the same morals as you is a good one. Again, I've cast a very wide net. But there is definite things that we all agree on as humans in this net that has been cast by myself. Um, so make that part of your strategy. Be around people who understand compassion, understand empathy, understand that you do hire people seriously that are most qualified for the job. Affirmative action is totally okay, you guys. It's totally okay. And the idea that you don't hire the best person because you have to bring in a certain number of others, that's, not 100% true. When they have affirmative action, it is to make sure you have a diverse workplace so this kind of bullshit wouldn't happen, which is now happening. And then, but you hire the best. You still hire the best. You don't pull a Pete Hegseth because you need to fill the slots. Like the idea that no one is going to college except white people is fucking bananas. Okay. Um, I mean, you guys look around. Okay. Strategy, part of the strategy. You use common sense. Okay. Colleges have tons of people, okay, from all backgrounds and diversities, okay, and they all get A's, okay, just like B's, C's, D's, okay, yeah. So these companies hire the best, okay. This is really crazy that we're having this conversation. So, but another thing that you can do personally, whether work at wherever you work, this is the time right now, and I would ask you to um, make this part of your strategy wherever you work, whether it's, the grocery store, Target, the mall, um, even if you are an Uber driver or a Lyft driver or you're part of the gig economy, this is the time to start calling, seeing what their plans are, call HR, especially if you work at like a Barnes and Noble or those kinds of places. Now is the time to call HR, see what they do, especially if you've worked there for a while. HR, 401k, ask the questions, what happens if the economy tanks? Ask the questions, okay, well, if you guys have mass layoffs, what do we do? What are my rights? And get on top of this right now. You have to have a strategy. You can't listen to the narcissist because they are bananas. They're all about them. It is a personality disorder. You're not going to beat a personality disorder. Okay. That's why it's called a disorder, right? What you have to do is focus on yourself. If you have money in the stock market, I'd get on the phone. I'd get on a first name basis with whoever is your stock person, and say, okay, if shit tanks, what are my options? What do we do? What's the best thing to keep my money safe? Um, if you are on SNAP and these sort of benefits, for Medicare and Medicaid, you guys have got to call those offices or go down to the office and say, look, I need to know what the plan is. Because we can't be caught off guard anymore. Okay. Um, I know that they've shown what they want to do. Okay. And they've shown what they want to do. And if you haven't read Project 2025, this would be a great time to go read Project 2025. Russell Vought was one of the authors of 2025. And right now, Congress has to agree to let him in to get whatever cabinet position. So this would also be a great time to call your senator and tell them, if you let this guy in, I'm not voting for you again. I, they still have to vote to let these people in to be in this cabinet. So again, use your voice. Tell them, I'm not going to vote for you again if you let Russell Vought in, if or whoever. Okay. Again, this is not making any sense to me because I live in I mean, listen, you guys, I talk about all sorts of crazy shit. And if I'm sitting here saying I listen, I live in reality, that's where we're at. So, um, if these people have to get voted in, call your senator, call your congressman, say, I'm not voting for you, because the whole idea was that they're saying, oh, we got to vote these people in or they'll get quote unquote primaried. Well, you know, I see that a couple ways. So either they let these people in, they keep doing this stuff. Um, and it's a huge money grab, you guys. Like, I don't know why anyone isn't reporting on this. If they freeze funds, those funds are setting in a bank. Okay. And this is me just going off the top of my head. Okay. Those funds sit in a bank. If they're not being distributed, they're collecting interest. Okay. These people aren't stupid. Where's that interest going? Who's taking the interest? So there's a lot to be had when money doesn't get distributed. At the same time, please remember we are the world's richest country. Okay. There's more one ways to figure things out. It doesn't have to be all the Democratic way or the Republican way. There is tons of different ways. So, um, oh, something just happened with my computer, which is very interesting as well. Okay, Google. Hey, Google. Um, Another strategy to have is to get with your friends and family. Okay. Get with your friends and family, make a plan. If one of you has a deep freezer, ask them, can I go store some shit in your deep freezer? Okay. Just in case. Get some extra beans, get whatever. If these tariffs are coming in and we do not know what's going to happen to the price of goods, right? And the idea is just to get prepared. I don't like when people use the terms like Armageddon or things like that. I think that's extremely scary. Because we have to remember all the things we can do besides just sit around and watch social media. Um, and to prepare. And the best way to prepare against a Gemini is strategy. You got to have a strategy because with Jupiter and Gemini, Jupiter is about to turn direct on February 4th. Jupiter is going to start to expand in Gemini. So I think this means DT is going to look even more bananas. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger. At the same time, though, we as humans, what we want to focus on, that can also get bigger and bigger. So if you want to focus on your personal security and safety, if you want to be a good neighbor, if you want to see where the food banks are, that was another thing. If you're on SNAP benefits, if you get these programs, see where the food banks are, see what time they hand out things. It's not going to hurt if you go and get a couple extra, you know, bags while you can of canned goods. We got to have a strategy. We got to have a strategy, and we can do this. As humans, we can do this. Also, make part of that strategy calling your local government. Make part of your strategy, call your senator. Okay. I can't imagine, like I said, these people wanting to cut their nose off to spite their face. I don't, but we've seen weirder things. The other thing is this, I would like just to remind people, when we go back and look at history and we're seeing this stuff, I do believe this man is a fascist and a dictator and all these things. The difference is where we are in history today. We don't have to allow that to happen. We don't have to feel hopeless. We don't have to feel disempowered. And that's part of their playbook, right? So one way that we fight back is organizing, okay? Calling your senator or whoever, and letting them know if you vote these people in, you're not getting my vote. um, Making your voice heard. Okay. Again, Gemini is communication. You got to decide how you want to communicate. Okay. You got to decide what you want to say and make that quote unquote the loudest. Let it get bigger. I want to communicate with love and empathy and compassion. At the same time, and this is the way that I feel like I can do that. At the same time, I'm not ignorant to what's going on, but I'm not going to live in fear. I mean, I don't want to fucking deal with another narcissist. I can't, I already did that for years. Okay. But here we are. Okay. So it's important to just strategize. It is important to understand um, what your rights are. It's important to understand what's going to happen to your money if you have money in the stock market, or if you've been working for a company that has a 401k, figure that stuff out. If you can go put some extra beans in the cupboard, go do that. These are all things, because the more stable you feel, the better your day is going to be, the less your nervous system is going to go bananas, which again is what narcissists do. They don't want us to feel stable. They want us to be gaslit. They want us to be confused. I don't know. And I think too, like, it's important to speak this stuff out loud, because that is telling the universe. The universe is hearing us say, we don't want this. Can we do better to make things better? Yeah. Can we find a different way to do it? Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way. That's not the American way, quite honestly. You know, the F around and find out phase, wasn't a great phase. I mean, I know people that voted for Trump, and their kids go to private school. And they need to realize a lot of that funding for those schools comes from the things that he just tried to freeze, like, people just don't know. So if you can educate yourself and get that moving, and get a strategy, that's going to be the best thing in the world to help you with this narcissistic behavior. Geminis, in order to combat the Gemini, because when Jupiter turns direct, I would see it, because I am a optimistic tarot reader, is what my friend called me. I would see it, okay, what we focus on, that is going to become, bigger. And if we focus on, speaking, beautifully, all these things, that's going to come bigger. But also, I mean, it's the same way for the other side, right? For that lower energy. If you focus on that lower energy, that's all you're going to see. It's going to get bigger, bigger, and bigger. And I just wish, the public media would do a better job um, with that understanding. I know you can't ignore what's happening, but also reporting on the ways that you could combat it that makes it easier. Reporting on, where the food banks are, reporting on, things that help people. Um, that would be easier if you want to. There's plenty of organizations also. Let me just say this too, right now, that distribute food. Um, I went to a meeting last night, and I was talking to the girl who does it on one side of town. I said, hey, I live on this side of town. I would like to talk to you about getting that started on my side of town. Okay. Because there's a lot of restaurants here. There's a lot of different people here that help with food insecurity. It doesn't necessarily go through, and the way they do it isn't through federal grants. Um, and so there are people out there and organizations out there that do combat food insecurity that don't do it through federal grants. Find out who they are, find out if you can replicate this, and or what it takes to help do that. Because we can. Again, I cannot stress enough, we are the richest country in the world. Okay. We we can help each other. We can make sure people have security. right? And one person's security might not look like another person's security, but we should be able to have security. Um, because literally we can. Okay, I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Uranus has turned direct in Taurus again on the 4th. On the 4th, Jupiter will turn direct in Gemini. It doesn't have to be scary. I don't like when people use the word apocalyptic. Um, but what we need is a strategy. So make sure you get a strategy. Maybe strategize with your friends and family. But this is the time. This is the time to do it. Nope. Okay. I can hear them coming to power wash. So I will just leave it at that. If you guys have any questions or would like a reading, please reach out. You can book one on my website at independentstreettarot.com. And if you guys are in for the Super Bowl, I hope you guys have a great time. All right. Talk to you soon.